Hey guys, it's MJ. In the last video, we looked at liquidity risk, so make sure you go and make yourself familiar with that one before moving on to this one. Although what we're going to be doing in this video is we're going to be looking at the three types of liquidity risks. So three types of liquidity risk. So that's what's going to be focused on in this video, and then tomorrow I'm going to make a video on liquidity risk electricity. It's a difficult word to pronounce. Where we're going to be looking more at the mathematics behind liquidity risk. But here I just want to look at the three types. So the first type I want to talk about is something known as funding liquidity risk. Okay, funding liquidity risk. Sometimes also, something that was very big during the whole credit crunch. And what funding liquidity risk is, it's when the market lacks the supply of money so that people cannot borrow. So when there's a supply problem and you can't borrow. So this was happened as a result of the world recession. Is banks became very, very, very risk adverse, and they stopped lending money to people. So as a business, if I needed some money in order to kickstart an operation or to buy an asset or do some sort of thing, I needed some sort of liquidity, but I couldn't get the liquidity because banks were being, risk adverse. This was known as funding liquidity risk. It's liquidity because it's dealing with the actual cash of money, and it's funding because I need that money from another person, but I can't do it because they're not giving it to me. Very much dependent on the environment and economic climate that you're in. So environment and economic climate. It's a little bit out of your control. However, it is always wise to be aware of your economic climate before going and requesting a loan or starting up any business activity. So that's funding liquidity risk. There's another one called market liquidity risk. Market liquidity risk. Okay, market liquidity risk is when the market lacks capacity to handle the transactions. Okay, so we lack capacity to handle transactions. Okay, one of the big, or what this is sometimes referred to as, is marketability. And you'll see it when you guys one day buy a house and you find that, okay, yeah, your house has got a very nice price tag of, say, 2 million rand. The problem being is that if you wanted to liquidate this asset, or you wanted to have 2 million rand worth of cash, it's going to take quite a long time for you to sell your house. Might take a month, might take a few more months. The reason being is that the market lacks the capacity to handle these transactions. This is something that we also saw happening with, say, Bitcoin. So I made a video early on in the year about Bitcoin arbitrage and how you could make a lot of money through the price discrepancies. But I warn people not to do it because you actually are taking on some sort of risk, which is market liquidity risk. And that is that you can buy all these Bitcoins, but then come to sell them. But the market, specifically here in South Africa, lacks the capacity to handle that transaction in the sense that there aren't any buyers. So you have to hold Bitcoin for a prolonged period from which you're exposed to price fluctuations, or you have to then sell the assets at a discounted amount, and you're not going to get all the profit that you thought you were going to get. So market liquidity risk does happen with some of your more exotic assets, such as cryptocurrencies and with property. I mean, equity, not so much. Bonds, not so much, especially in, say, your first world countries like America and England. But it is something to be aware of in, let's say, credit crisis times, when the market might say, hey, we don't actually feel that aggressive, we're not going to just buy anything, and that's when the market can start losing capacity. Finally, the last risk I want to talk about is operational liquidity risk. Okay, operational liquidity risk. This basically was the theme of the video that I posted yesterday. So go check that out to get a full analysis of what operational liquidity risk is. Basically, it's not having enough cash on hand to meet operations. So when you have low cash and you can't handle or meet your operations. What I'm going to be doing in the next video, and I just want to, because otherwise these videos are way too long, is I want to look at something known as liquidity risk elasticity, where you look at how your liquidity risk changes in certain market conditions. We're going to be looking at things known as net liquid assets, what is the liquidity gap, immunization, and all these other fun things. So make sure you subscribe and you tune in tomorrow to see a more in-depth analysis or management of liquidity risk. But it's important to realize that there's some liquidity risks that are under your control, such as operational liquidity risk. So this is under control, and that there's other ones that are out of your control or more of an external risk that you need to be aware of. Anyway, like always, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Cheers.